What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Real Estate Served on the Rocks, powered by Living in Colorado, The Mile High Perspective on YouTube, as well as Fathom Realty and Keller Williams downtown. My name is Charlie Sardelli, and as always, I'm here with
Jameson Amros,
Oscar Ibarra,
and we are at the Rouge Wine and Bourbon Bistro, our amazing sponsor down here in Greenwood Village off of I-25. And guys, on this podcast, you know, we don't just talk about real estate, we drink bourbon. And today's topic and bourbon, I think, are going to go hand in hand.
because the conversation's going to get a little toasty.
It's going to get a little toasty, and I got
a lot of it toasty.
we got a nose and we got a tail over here that are going to bookend the conversation, and I love it. I love it.
You know how I like playing devil's advocate.
Yeah.
I might get a little edgy, but at the end of the day, you know, I might have to change my Facebook status from unsafe from being deported. Just saying.
Oh man! And as you guys can,
The little flag, but it's a Mexican flag.
as you guys know, whenever we talk,
back. Going back to what? I'm not
about
from
these
there.
Topics is going to be, we're going to stay as even keeled as we can. We're going to come from factual information. Obviously, we got Stats Guy and Jameson. We've all done a bunch of research, and then Oscar has over 20 years in the industry, seen many things come in and do changes to the real estate market. And I'm here as mediator, and just going to share opinions with you guys.
You're kind of like the glue.
Just a little.
You rope us
I'm the
in
middle.
a little bit.
I'm the middle. Right?
Yeah. Well, and I mean the whole election process has been exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
But the more important piece to me is we have just heard so many promises, and we're going to do this, and we're going to make this, and this is going to happen. And to me, obviously, it's all words until things get actually implemented. We won't know that until probably the first 100 days once the new administration takes over. But I wanted the goal today to just focus on the housing market, because affordability is still the number one, topic in people's heads, and to take what the incoming administration is saying they are planning on doing, cut through some of the bullshit, and give people, as like you said, right, as middle of the road viewpoint based on facts that we can, so that you guys can make your own decision and opinions on what you think is going to happen.
I'm going to be playing the quote unquote devil's advocate, but if you recall from that podcast, I'm the one that said that the administration, the shit that they were trying to put on the docket was all crap.
Yeah.
So I kind of have to defend that now, but
yeah, we'll go through it.
We'll get through it, and you know
there's
how
a lot of good things. There's a lot of iffy things. There's a lot of things that are nonsensical.
If anything, bring it into reality.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know
and-
how it affects, how it can happen,
Right.
And if certain things do happen, what are the ramifications from it?
Yeah, and so if you guys can't tell, we're going to talk a little bit in the political sphere with what's going on in the housing market. So really, the topic is President Trump put out a video shortly after the inauguration that was talking about the housing market, and he talked about 3 different points within the housing market as to how he's going to make housing more affordable. And we're going to go through those 3 topics with you, and then kind of talk through it, guide through it. But while we do that,
What are the 3 topics again?
you tell them, J-Mo.
All right. So the 3 topics that we are going to talk about is the claim that we are going to bring the mortgage rates down to 3% or even possibly lower, because that right now is one of the biggest drivers of unaffordability. Number 2 is the promise to essentially deregulate and make permits cheaper so that developers can build houses cheaper.
Now, is it re-regulating? I mean, because that's what really has to happen.
I mean,
if we take
change
out
regulations,
yeah,
yeah.
just change regulation.
Yeah.
And
Get rid of red tape, I guess, would be the deal, because there's two categories that drive that cost.
And you know
up
where
when
that
you're
comes
constructing
from.
a home.
Elon.
Right. And then the third is opening up federal land to build communities and more houses. Yep. Those are the main 3.
One interesting phrase that I heard a lot on both sides, or I tend to differentiate both sides from the 2 networks, right? There's Fox and CNN, and they both were talking about political athletics. Both sides are pretty stubborn, and if they could use political athletics, from what I got from that term, was that if it doesn't work, let's change it and not be prideful. Just cut it and then just try it again. Yeah. I think that would be a great thing to do. Well,
I'm excited. I'm excited for the One Rock takeaways from this episode, because I think between the 3 of us, it's gonna be insightful, but it's also gonna be a little bit more like real. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but
agreed.
talking about new things coming out and coming into fruition. On today's episode, the bourbon that we're going to be drinking is the Whistlepig Snout-to-Tail Toasted, and it's a 10-year bourbon. Now, this is brand new from Whistlepig. They just released this, just came out, and what's really cool with Whistlepig is, we at this point, I think this is the third Whistlepig that we're going to be drinking on the podcast.
Most Whistlepig I've ever had.
Yeah, and Chris has been phenomenal supplying us with it. We're glad to get out ahead and give you guys what I could find as one of the first reviews on this bottle.
Yeah.
And this bottle is going to be 44. It's 88 proof, 44%, so it's lower for a 10-year than you would expect. But
That was the first thing I noticed. I'm like, 10 years. It's interesting.
the cool thing about this, though, the reason it's called Snout to Tail is because of the toasting method. So they do a two-toast method with this. And basically what that means is they take the cap of the barrel and they toast it with a different oak than they do with the bottom cap of the barrel.
Got it.
So that's why it's snout to tail, top, bottom of the barrel.
Okay.
And then supposedly those flavors will combine and meet in the middle.
Okay.
And what I always love about companies that, and the bourbons that do things like this is they do let you know. So as far as what they're using. So the snout toast is Vermont oak number 1, and the tail toast is Vermont oak number 2. So
Now, do we know what that means?
so that's just 2 different kinds of Vermont oak, 2 different trees that they've then taken and toasted because they're supposed to add different flavors to it. So I'm going to go ahead and start pouring this guy out.
I am nervous about this bottle.
And isn't Whistlepig known for their ryes, right?
Yeah.
They're more known for their ryes. I don't know a whole lot about Whistlepig because, I mean, even within my journey of bourbon and ryes and whiskeys, I've always known them to be very pricey. And I don't know enough to be like, oh, yeah, I want that bottle.
Agreed.
So
Agreed.
this is a cool experience for me. And I thought they were just, mainly rye company. So this is cool.
They are.
It is a
And
bourbon, 10-year age.
This is a bourbon, and I think what's going to be even more interesting is when we had that rye, the Whistlepig that we had, it was sweeter, and that's what kind of threw us off. We were like, wait, this is a rye? How is this possible? So with this, I'm thinking that since it's a bourbon and we're doing that snout to tail, this is going to be a little bit sweeter.
Do we know what the mash bill is on it?
I was going to ask.
I didn't find the mash bill on it. It is a bourbon though.
No, I know. I'm just nervous. I'm nervous looking at it because I'm taking in the fact that it's 10-year age, so the dark color makes sense, right? As it's sitting in that barrel.
But see, is that dark?
I think it's in the bottle. I think it's darker, right? But normally I equate darker whiskeys to sweeter whiskeys.
Yeah.
And then if it's a 10-year, you have the ABV kind of offset that a little bit. But in this case, it's 88 proof, which
And yes, sweeter as far as like caramel sweeter.
Yeah.
Because the clear weeded ones are usually like the more subtle sweeter. So I don't know, 10-year.
I'm okay, guys. Just get your nose in it for me. Just get your nose in it.
Snout in it.
Yeah, hey. I like it. Yeah, get the schnozzle up in there.
I am. I'm just looking at. I wanted to see if they gave.
They don't even. This is so new that they don't even have it on their website. Just to give you that. I couldn't find it there.
We're gonna get a phone call
Was
from
this
Whistlepig. Be
a
like, you weren't supposed to have it out yet.
Yeah, you weren't supposed to have this.
It's like
How did you get this?
It's like the Black Friday deals at Best Buy. Remember, we used to get in trouble for selling those before.
Yep. Yes, I am older than 21.
You know what? Do I
I'm
have to
trying
go get a job at Best Buy? I feel kind of left out. Like everybody worked at Best Buy.
I'm gonna tell you right now.
Don't feel left out. Yeah. No.
Don't.
You know what?
You're not the only thing you are missing is the employee discount.
Yeah.
That is a fact.
I do like my electronics. I
This
did work at
is-
Blockbuster, which that doesn't give me shit now.
This smells like a cupcake.
It smells like a cupcake, but then also like, why does this have more of a singe to it than the 110s and 20s that we've been drinking?
I mean, yes or no? You got to breathe in pretty deep though.
I feel it more though. The sweetness is scary. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Right?
I'm very.
Like I don't
timid.
mind a sweet bourbon, but
No, but this is. I think out of all the ones that we've had, this one is the most sweet on the nose.
yeah,
Like,
It's
it's
like
hard
like okay, and call me crazy, and again, my senses are a little fucked up because I was kind of sick this weekend. But it's like a honeycomb sweet, like a waxy honeycomb sweet.
And then little notes of it. It's almost the dryness of a nut, not like the
Like an
The
almond
earthiness, yeah.
skin.
You know
Yeah.
what else is scaring me though? So if you just swirl it around a little bit and then just let your nose clear and then take another whiff, that sweetness kind of dissipates pretty quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so does the harshness.
You know?
Yeah.
Like,
So it
just
might
kinda-
open up just.
Interesting. It make it
evaporates,
flat.
dude.
Hey,
I
you
don't
know
get
how
flat.
when you go buy colognes
Mm-hmm.
and they have the coffee? Does that work for bourbon too? Do we
Yeah.
need to bring little
Yeah.
grounds of coffee?
We do. We need to have little like coffee beans or grounds to reset the palate.
Just saying.
Wait, what?
So coffee beans, whenever you sniff them, they reset your taste palate.
Oh, I didn't
So then
know
you can. That's why a lot of.
Dude, you don't buy cologne.
I have one cologne I've used for 20 years. It's Armani Code. I will never use a different cologne.
I can't even. You know what?
Jennison's trying to use
I
subliminal,
respect that.
like
I respect that.
subliminal advertising over here. He's like, "This is my smell. Anytime you're
It
walking
is.
through it, you're gonna think of me.
It's my
It's all I
smell.
smell like."
You
next
know, I
time
was-
you hear next time you smell Armani Code, you're gonna be like, Jameson.
Well,
know-
no, I like it. And honestly, guys, this is pretty cool. We're
It's also funny that we have a reset button.
yes, yeah. I wish I did.
Have you tried to plug it in, unplug it, and plug it back in? That's what we should do for the country right now.
Guys, we're
Anyway.
getting
We need
we're
a
getting
wash.
there. You know, I think that like this is we got to start sending these reviews to some companies because we're getting okay on the nose. Mm-hmm. You're greeted with aromas of honey, brown
Boom.
sugar,
Yep.
toasted cashew, creating a warm nutty bouquet that hints at the richness to come.
Damn. You know what?
Spot on, boys.
So,
Proud of
and
us,
none
dude.
of this is scripted, by the way.
No.
Especially my ass. Again, I wasn't doing well this weekend. I just came in even more so less prepared. But it's when you know something and you try and you get it, that's one thing. But when you know something and you don't try and you just go with it,
Yeah.
and you get it,
It's cool.
It's kind of
That's
cool.
what I said. We got to start sending these. Hey, if you're out there, if any of our listeners, if you have any bourbon connections, please send it
them our
out.
way.
Comment.
You know what
tag
I was?
them in this.
I was thinking. You know what? Maybe if you like, we start naming a brand. They'll say, "Hey, what's up?" And then we go visit their Earth Warmer. They're here in Colorado. Can
Ooh,
I go
okay.
visit your facility?
right. All right, so I'm gonna go.
Anyway, it was really cold this week in Colorado. If you don't
Yep.
know, if you're not from here, so I had a lot of time to think about cool stuff like
All right, gentlemen.
RVs and stuff.
Cheers. Let's go ahead and get them sips in.
Cheers. Stop rushing me, Charlie.
Sorry.
I'm sensitive today.
Interesting. Interesting. All right. Going in for sip number 2.
Well, you know how they say that the first sip of gasoline?
Yeah.
This kind of wasn't.
No.
It's kind of watery, actually.
Oh man. I want to get your first impressions, guys.
It kind of went from the nutty side to like an herbal,
It,
like a tea,
Okay.
herbal tea
Are
kind
you
of.
guys? Is it taking a long time for you guys to get the flavor?
Yeah.
It's taking a long time for the flavor to actually hit. It's just like it's almost like
It's-
a flatness at the beginning.
Yeah, it's not like a mute. It's like
Yeah.
I'm drinking water. Oh, here it comes.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
And you have to let it sit. There's almost no immediate flavor at the beginning, other than just like.
You guys
Oh,
ever go
this
to
is
like
bourbon.
a hotel in the lobby? And they've got that giant jug of water, and they put like a shit ton of cucumbers or oranges in it, and you drink it, and you're like, "Oh, this is normal water." And then you start to walk away, and you go, "Wait a second, is that orange?"
Yeah.
It's kind of like that.
It
like
is.
I'm getting more fruit forward than the brown sugar honeycomb now. On
Yeah,
the
I'm
palate.
getting more like Earl Grey tea kind
Yeah,
of like.
I don't know what Earl Grey tea tastes like, but
Oh my god.
I don't drink tea or.
He's like,
crumpets.
oh, I drink this kind of tea. Done it for 20 years. That's all I'm drinking. I have to respect that cologne.
Arizona green tea. That's all I'm drinking.
No, well, okay, so maybe
No,
not.
it's
maybe
the
not.
floral like the herbal port.
The,
Yeah,
the
I get it.
herbal
Yes.
is,
Yeah.
it's
Very-
not so
yeah.
much Earl
Yeah.
Grey, but it's more like
It is
that
not as
soppy
like the
Earl
nose
herbal.
is to me right now, and we'll see if it opens up. The nose is exponentially sweeter
Yes.
than it is on the palate.
Yes.
And I'm actually getting a little bit of a burn for some reason.
Yeah.
Maybe I've turned into
I
a
get
little
it
bit of a
lower,
bitch,
like
but-
lower.
Yes.
front
Yeah.
end, tip of the tongue, nothing.
Nothing. No. Absolutely
Nothing.
nothing. And then like it's just I can't explain.
Which is
It's
weird.
Is
almost
it
like
waiting to open up?
oh, maybe, but it's almost like
Is it a shy,
okay.
delicate
Okay.
flower?
Okay. It's
Man,
almost
this
like
this stuff is 10 years.
Right.
Yeah.
Where's all the complexity?
Right.
it's almost like I'm taking a wooden like stick, like a like the medical stick, and sticking it on my tongue. That's
Yeah.
how I can attest to it at
But
the beginning
slightly
of the
charred.
sip.
But slightly charred.
Slightly charred.
Yes.
And less gaggy.
Then and then the flavor hits it after that. Like you get that flat flavor of wood, and then boom, you get some sweetness. You get that floral, and the sweet for me is definitely sitting like on the back
Yes.
outside
Yeah.
of my tongue.
Correct.
The outer perimeter
It's
of
very,
your back tongue,
very herbal,
up front,
very floral.
tip of the tongue, 0.
Yeah, interesting.
Wow.
Okay, all right. Okay, this is gonna be cool. I'm interested to see it. I'm interested to see it open and see what happens. All right, so let's go ahead and get into today's topic. So the first thing that we're going to talk about, the first address that we're going to make, is Donald Trump said in the video, and we will play parts of the video and/or tag the video.
We will play the entire clip because I know you motherfuckers on the internet will be like, we only played 3 seconds. We'll play the whole clip.
Okay.
Just so
Put
you
the whole
have
clip in.
context clues.
So I'm going to go ahead and put the clip in right here.
Young people will be able to buy a home again and be a part of the American dream. We will make housing much more affordable. As inflation is tamed, interest rates will dramatically fall. They'll be down very, very low. We'll get them down. We had them down to 2.4% and even lower than that for a period of time. Reducing mortgage rates is a big factor. We're going to get them back down to, we think, 3%, maybe even lower than that, saving the average home buyer thousands of dollars per year. We will eliminate regulations that drive up housing costs with the goal of cutting the cost of a new home in half. We think we can do that. The regulations alone cost 30%. Regulation costs 30% of a new home. And we will open up portions of federal land for large-scale housing construction. These zones will be ultra-low tax and ultra-low regulation. One of the great, really small business job creation programs it will be of all time. We're going to open up our country to building homes inexpensively so young people and other people can buy homes. You can't buy them anymore. Millions of Americans will take part in setting these safe and beautiful communities, reviving the frontier spirit, and really, as I said, reviving the American dream. It's about the American dream. It's all about the American dream.
Hope you guys enjoyed that.
I was like, do we have to wait
Yeah.
super long?
Hope you guys enjoyed that. But so the first thing that he addressed is interest rates. Obviously, we all remember during the pandemic, you guys hear us talk about it all the time. Interest rates were down at 2.5, 3%. Trump talks about they want to make housing more affordability by going after home interest rates and mortgage rates to make it more affordable for people to buy homes. And we have touched on this topic multiple times in the past. This was one of the running points that RFK was using when he first came out. We're going to bring these interest rates down. So I'm kind of just going to leave it up. I want to leave it up for option. We're going to talk about kind of like what that looks like, how it can happen. Is it good? Is it bad? Where are you guys going? What are we thinking?
Both. I mean, it's
Yep.
good and it's bad. I thought, 5% is pretty healthy. Mm-hmm. I mean, that keeps us even kilter. And then let's start. I think the key factor would be in building more. I kind of went when he started talking about maybe we'll see one. Fuck.
Yep.
That's all I could think about. Fuck. What? Because and hear me out. The ramifications that comes with that.
Exactly.
Right? We saw it. We saw it firsthand. We know what that's going to do because we still don't have that inventory. I mean, we had a mass amount of inventory. Hell yeah. Let's bring them down to 1. That's free fucking money. Let's go. Let's buy some houses. People are going to buy houses because they want to, not because they have to. Let's go. But right now, we haven't addressed the building portion. And I think if they go below 3 or even close to 3, even in the upper 3s, low 4s, it's gonna cause a little bit of chaos.
And what else we're talking about with that chaos is you hear us talk about it all the time, right? Economy and economics isn't really that hard because everything's based on supply and demand, right? So the main thing
The amount of people who don't understand that basic principle
I know.
just blows my
But-
fucking mind.
Yes.
Anyway,
But shout out to the American education
Jesus
system.
Christ.
But no, okay. So if you think about it like this, right? As it sits right now with the way interest rates are, we have a low amount of people that are in the buying pool that can actually afford down payment on a home, get into a home because of the way that interest rates are at their height. Once those interest rates come down, you guys have heard this, for every, half a point?
Just do for every point since we're talking going down.
Okay,
Every
so-
point is 5 million.
5 million more buyers enter the pool. So if you have now, let's say we go from this 7 down to 3, that's a 4 point swing.
That's a lot.
That's 20 million buyers coming into the pool. And this is where Oscar's comment comes into play. If you have 20 million buyers coming into the pool so rapidly, but our inventory is not where it needs to be to supply the demand of those 20 million people, the only outcome that will happen is that housing costs will go higher. And the reason that happens that way is because when you have more people bidding on a house, as a seller, that's what you want, because they're going to either increase that sales price to make their offer better, or they're going to ask for less from you in order to compete. So if we get 20 million more people in the market and those offers are going up, that's not going to help the cost of housing. And irregardless of what your interest rates are right now, the biggest thing to me, and you guys can lean on this, is we're not at a place where interest rates and housing costs are actually in line with each other. And what I mean by that is, in Colorado, the average house cost is $580,000. You do that at 7%, starting out, you're already looking at over $4,000 a month for your interest payment. And so if we bring that interest rate down to 3%, but then the house goes up to average $700,000, there's an offset there. You're still going to be paying a higher amount, whether it's upfront on the housing cost or over time on your interest.
Can I get a little weird?
Yeah.
So, and this is kind of where it kind of the government cannot snap their fingers and make affordable housing.
No.
There's a trickle effect. There's certain steps that have to happen so if they're not going to build homes personally, the government, then they can't just say, oh, we're making houses affordable. Why? Because all the homeowners that are out there, the government can't say, I'm going to make you sell for a set price.
It's a free market.
It's a free market. I mean, I'll be pissed if they're like, all right, you need to sell your house for $300,000. And they can't make you, or can they? I mean, there's eminent domain.
Slippery.
If they need to build something,
Yeah, slippery meets slope.
they could say, I need to run a road through your house and make you sell.
Sure.
You know, eminent domain condemnation, or there's a bunch of conspiracy theory going on in California. That stupid shit aside, they can't. They could help give incentives to builders, tax breaks, whatever. They can help with our cost of labor, and this is all going to tie into what we're going to talk about, so we can build more.
Yep.
So there's no, okay, we're going to drop rates, now it's affordable. No, that's just going to make shit worse.
Yeah.
Statman.
Well,
tell me
so
what you
I mean,
think.
I look at affordability, and I get that they're trying to attack these things, right? Affordability is determined by 3 things. We've said this before. It's determined by home prices, it's determined by interest rates, and it's determined by wages or wage growth, right? One of those 3 levers have to be pulled in order to make housing affordable again, quote unquote, right? So the conversation right now is they're saying we want to lower the housing or the mortgage rates to 3%, 2%, maybe even lower. So we just talked about why that would be a horrible idea. And I spent like good 2 hours just trying to find any credible, verified source that came out and said we do not currently have a housing shortage. And I have not found a single one, right?
Well,
so we know from a supply standpoint, we don't have enough houses. We've just discussed that per percent that the interest rates come down, you're adding 5 to 6 million different home buyers into an environment that doesn't have enough inventory, and we have too much money chasing too few goods. Prices are going to increase, right? That's just the fact. So let's flip it and say, okay, let's say that they do say, hey, we're going to drop interest rates to 3%.
Well, and that's what I was going to get to is
how can they do that?
Exactly.
There's 2 ways, and Oscar and I talked about this off camera. There's 2 ways to do it. You can do it artificially, right? In the sense that the government will turn around and say, hey, we're going to start putting bonds on our balance sheet, and we are going to control essentially the bond market so that it is cheaper and it makes more financial sense for people to purchase mortgage-backed securities, whatever that looks like, which is what happened back in 2020. That's how you artificially do it.
borrow against our money.
That's how you
That's
artificially
what they're going to do.
The other,
and
the other way
they do
to
it a lot, believe it or
The
not.
other way to do it is the bond market, which controls mortgage interest rates, is they react to inflation. And the 10-year treasury is what we bump up mortgage interest rates to. So what the bond market does is they say, hey, in the next 10 years, do we think we're going to be in a more or a less inflationary period? And if it's more inflationary, they go towards the stock market, which has bonds go down. If it's less inflationary, or they think there's going to be a recession, then the bond yields actually come down, which then lowers mortgage rates. So the second way that it would happen is if we entered a recession, and when a recession happens, mortgage rates decline. Those are the two ways it's going to happen, right? Mm-hmm. And we know for a fact right now, based on the monetary policies that the administration is talking about, they're very inflationary.
Well, and I kind of want to slow it down a little bit, only because if you're not regularly in the market, then a lot of what Jameson just said, it probably won't make sense to you. Like if you don't
Educate
understand,
yourselves though.
Yeah. Well, and the reason I want to bring it up is because what we're talking about is basically one way for interest rates to come down, like they did in the pandemic, is for the government to say, hey, mortgage companies, we are going to back these mortgages. So if this person does not pay, you are still covered. And that is what allows them to bring those interest rates down, because they are guaranteed to make their money back irregardless of if you can pay the loan or not. That's basically what it comes down to when Jameson says artificially, because then the government is covering half of your mortgage. Now, for me, the thing that, and again, guys, I want to say this just flat out. I hope everything plays out. I hope it works out well. But I'm more of a critical thinker in this sense. And during the pandemic, and Oscar and I addressed this with Oscar off camera before we started, is during the pandemic, we had a lot of spare money because a lot of trade was shut down. We couldn't send things out. So the government was able to pull that and back it a little bit easier. Now we're in full swing. And, we have imports, exports, the economy's running, whatever it may be. So where, and Oscar, I want you to expand on this after I say it. Where are they going to get this money from? Because you had mentioned, borrowing against themselves. So, and I'm going to ask you on this. So basically, if we were to do this, if the government was to back it, that would just lead to a higher monetary deficit for the country, because we're pulling more money against ourselves. Is that
correct?
Okay.
So, and many administrations have done it in the past. Obama did it, and it worked out great. And it's a business move, right? You're gonna borrow money to alleviate a certain situation. In the long run, that's gonna help, even though it puts us further in debt, but it pushes the country forward. Okay. Basically, that's what it does. So that's when I said it's just a conversation we had. We're gonna go further in debt, but it's gonna hopefully produce a better economy for us, right?
And I do want to back you up on that. When Oscar says it's just a conversation to be had, that basically what he's saying is that is the government talking to the Fed and saying, hey, we need this to happen because of ABC, and the Fed going, okay, how are we going to work this? And then them working together to establish that.
Correct.
That's what that looks like. That's not just Donald Trump going, hey, you need to bring mortgage rates down, and then they do it.
And again,
there's a give and take that comes from it.
We're going to stay on topic in politics, not only the bipartisan side of it, but there's three branches to government. Mm-hmm. We all have to talk. I mean, the president does have a lot of the power, but he just can't say, done. Exactly. No, it doesn't work that way. Mm-hmm. There's still some checks and balances, right? So that's a conversation that has to be agreed upon, because the catastrophic side of that is like the Big Short,
Yeah, exactly.
So
exactly,
it can happen if it turns out that people a lot smarter than I am, or a lot more patient at least, to see and see the foreseeable future of the ramifications of if it goes bad and if it goes really good, the move on that.
Yeah.
So, what are a couple ways that the government funds itself? Like, how does
Taxes.
it get money? Okay, that's one.
Mm-hmm.
What's the other one? What's another giant?
Tariffs.
Okay.
Same.
No, because that's on the American companies.
Yeah.
Treasury bonds.
Yes.
So the government uses treasury bonds to fund themselves. They can't force investors to buy treasury bonds, so they have to set interest rates that are attractive. And that is the dichotomy of what we're dealing with. If we have a hot stock market, okay, and you're an investor, and I say, hey, Charlie, I'm going to give you $1,000. Maybe two choices. You got a 15% return if you put that money into the stock market over the next 2 years. Or you have a 4.5% return if you put it in the treasury bond market, but you can't touch that money for 10 years. Which one are you going to do?
The first one.
Right. So when that happens, that is why you see the interest rates on the treasury bonds increase, because the government has to essentially like convince people to fund them by buying these treasury bonds. But the only way to do that is if the returns make sense. So the problem with the government borrowing against itself is all that's going to result in eventually is they're going to have to up the interest rates on the treasury bonds to make that money back, which is going to increase mortgage rates
And
anyway.
the other thing that, and you both kind of touched on it. You talked about investors, and then Oscar, you talked about, when earlier it's free money, right? The one thing that I did not see, and hopefully it comes out, that was the biggest pain point for the longest time for so many Americans is BlackRock and all of these big companies. And again, we talked about it. It was a position point. It was a talking point during the election, but there was nothing in there. There's nothing mentioned about, hey, is this going to be a blanket interest rate for everybody, or is this actually going to help people who can't afford it? So what I mean by that is, like, if we go down to a 3% interest rate, we talked about this. What happened during the pandemic? Colorado was one of the most affected states by it. People with money said, oh shit, this is free money. This is 3% interest. They came and they bought everything. The hedge funds have the backing. So if we bring it down to 3%, what's going to stop that from
I think,
like Susie and Joe going, hey, I want to put an offer in on this house. But then somebody who has $1 million backing in a fund somewhere coming, sorry, I'm offering $30,000 over.
Well, I don't think it so much has to do with the interest rate. Yes, you're on the right track. It's more the fact of your money, right? Say I'm a hedge fund. I really don't care what the interest rate's doing. I'm going to make money regardless. So Susie and Bob come in and they want to buy this house. The investor's angling himself on the projection of the property value. So you're more at risk on having a big black rock coming in and just dominating or monopolizing on real estate when you have a bad market, let's say short sales, foreclosures, and the economy's tanking for them to make a big grab, or interest rates drop, and what's going to happen? It's going to push values up, right? Because people are going to start bidding them up. That's their angle. Not so much the rate itself, but the fact that the projected value is going to go up. We talk about 3 to 7% on a normal market. Well, on a market that has these interest rates that are going to be low, people are going to start this piranha kind of feeding frenzy, drive the price up. So BlackRock positioned himself where now I'm going to be a player and I'm going to buy these at a cost that doesn't fit my budget model, but because of the projections of a 20% increase in price, I'm going to win. So that's how these big companies come and position themselves. Not so much for the rate that's going to benefit them, but the rate that's going to benefit the public that's going to drive the prices up.
But again, to my point there is, though, at the same time, they're backed more, so they're going to be able to come in and beat out Susie and Bob, regardless of where the home price is. They're still going to be able to come in and say, hey, I can offer more than you can. So my whole point around this is
because of the projected increase.
Less about the hedge funds, more about like, how are we actually going to guarantee that this is going to help the American, the family buy a home, rather than just open up the market to everybody who can invest that money? That's my question.
The only entity that was ever able to put a kibosh on investors coming in and profiting on a loss is HUD. Yep. The HUD had a consumer date, and then there's a blackout that no investor can bid on this property. HUD homes, there was distressed property that was picked up. It was either FHA owned or whatever, and then the government puts it back. It's a bid, and then the consumer can bid, and then they get all the perks. After 20, 30 days, if no consumer wants it, then an investor would come in and bid on it.
I think that that comes in.
That was something that HUD was able to do because it was their property. Now in a free market, it's kind of up to us.
It's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be real interesting. But I want to, Jamie. Do you have more that you want to share on this topic before we move on?
Oh, I'm just going to share my own personal opinion.
Yeah.
If interest rates drop in the next 4 years to 3% in the current environment, I don't think it helps anybody.
I agree.
I think it hurts the housing market more,
especially here in Colorado,
more than we can even imagine at this
Unless there's more inventory.
Exactly.
Right, but we have to make up 2 to 5 million homes that we're short in 4 years. So
well, no, that
what does that look like?
We need to no. That's we're down that in a year.
Correct.
I'm saying in a year. So technically in 4 years, if we compound that, we have to make up 20 million homes.
That's what I'm saying.
Years.
To me, if
it's
you're a buyer
feasible.
out there and you heard that promise and you're going, man, I can't wait for that to happen because it's going to make houses more affordable. I am telling you right now, and I'll put my name and my family's name on this. If interest rates go to 3%, it will not help you buy a house.
buy now, refinance later.
Exactly. Honestly, that's
Yeah, it will not.
honestly,
It will not help you buy
If
a
he's
house.
talking about bringing
It will
interest
hurt
rates
your
down, yeah,
chances.
that
It will
is-
hurt your chances of
buy
of
right
owning a
now
home.
if you can. Buy right now.
Because if it dropped to 6, no one says you can't
Yeah.
refinance
So,
it.
No, that's just my.
It's
my
like
it's
it.
it's not
All
for
right.
many reasons. I agree.
Yeah.
Because they have to address another.
Yeah.
Another
And so
sector.
we talked about building, and guys, you've heard us talk about this very often. The second topic that we're going to talk about is the deregulation and/or taking away roadblocks and red tape for builders to build single-family homes and homes in general. You've heard us talk about this multiple times. We all believe that the only way to increase the rate of single-family home building is to incentivize builders. Now, Donald Trump talking about removing the red tape and removing regulation, be honest with you, I think it's a good thing.
Well, so here's the deal, though. There's a caveat, right? So he said he wants to curtail the regulations in the development and building phase of new construction, right? That's one thing.
Yes.
That doesn't necessarily mean we're going to see more houses being constructed because of that. The point of him saying that, and he says it in the video that we posted, he wants to drive down the cost of purchasing that home
Yes.
by getting rid of unnecessary regulations, fees, costs, whatever. And the reason I say that is because if you build a house, and Oscar, you've dealt with new construction forever too, there's two phases of building a new construction. There's the development phase where you buy the land, you pull the permits, so on and so forth, and then there's the actual construction phase. Between those two phases, the average percentage it costs from the eventual purchase price is about 13% of the cost of the house is regulation fees and whatever in the development phase, and then 10% during the construction phase. So essentially, if you're buying a $400,000 house, 25% of the cost of that is tied up in bullshit red tape and regulations.
Which, and I do want to,
right?
I do want to point out, in the video, Donald Trump said that it was 30%. The
tw-
last time
It's 24. But
the last time
25.
the last time we had a conductive study on this was either, and I don't know if you have it up, was 2017 or 2019. That was the last time that we actually had a true study brought in.
This is 2021.
2021. Okay.
So if you're buying a
On this.
$400,000 home, if that, let's say that goes away, it's $100,000.
And that's if you go to zero fees, which that'll never happen.
Right, but still,
but if you
even
need to cut it in half,
75,000. Let's
Yeah.
say 3/4 of it.
well,
you
here
know,
I'll
a
give
quarter of it.
I'll give you the actual number. Okay, so in 2021, obviously this has gone up since then. The average price of a new single-family home nationwide was $398,000.
All right.
Okay,
What
of
the fuck
that,
are they building?
that's average, right? That's 2021. So that was still
We
when
haven't seen the
builders
full
were going nuts,
boom.
right?
That was 2020 to 2020.
So the regulations imposed by all levels on that price house was about $93,000. So $93,000 of the $398 was regulation fees, permits, etc. So even if you cut that in half, to your point, right? You're going from $94,000 to $45,000. You're saving $45,000 on the cost of that home being constructed, which I think would be fantastic, right? Especially in Colorado, where we have new builds all over the place. I think it's a great idea.
yeah,
Thoughts?
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see any.
My only issue is, again, we were told what and not how. So what I mean by that is, like, one thing that I read is, and again, I'm not trying to get political or go either way, but one thing that he mentioned was like the cost of home appliances in like overall, like, oh, we're going to get rid of environmental regulations that then require these builders to add in these eco-friendly, like, thing. So my question is, like, where? How are you going to take this? Is this going to, Oscar, you mentioned it, are we going to do lumber? Like, are we going to change from lumber to metal studs? Like, what are we going to do? How are you going to take that down? What regulations are you going to change? And is that going to affect the overall safety and quality of the build of the home to bring those prices down?
Not only that, but again, when they make these decisions and amendments and whatnot, it's a blanket, right? And then it starts affecting negatively in other parts. Let's say that they take out the regulations or red tape. What does that do to like historical land and stuff like that?
Yeah,
what do we do there? So a lot of stuff needs to be addressed. I get it. It's not just hey, let's just throw it out the door. Well, again, I sat down with the councilwoman and told her that one of the rental stuff that we talked about in the past that had kind of screwed us in the industry, and not us as real estate agents, but us, the general public, it kind of put a kibosh on a lot of stuff that kind of makes more of a headache, and she was open to understanding it. So again, I think they do need to take a look at the whole, how is it going to affect everything, not just like the new construction.
Yeah.
If they do lift a regulation, or let's say that the topography has to be a certain way. I don't know what these regulations
and
are
that's
going
what
to
I
be,
mean.
right?
It's when it comes to regulations like this, when you say we're going to limit regulations, we're going to take regulations away, I think
It
the
removes a little
range-
bit, a little bit of a level of safety.
Well, yeah. Well, not only that, it's
Whatever
just,
that looks
there's
like.
such a range that are in place for specific reasons. So it's like, if you were to tell me, no, I'm going to go after it here, I'm going to go after, you can't. I mean, I can't even like quote it. But if I'm going to go after this.
I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
Okay. Because there's two parts to this, and one, people are just, again, this is my problem with people, just political figures. Doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, just spouting shit to appease people, right? There's something that we all learned, and I learned anyway in school, called state sovereignty, right? The federal government can say all they want about eliminating regulations and rolling back all these different things for new construction, but at the end of the day, that is a state level, county level, city level decision. So the federal government cannot, right? And if they did, there would be a massive amount of pushback, regulate directly what the states want to do as far as these permits and regulations, et cetera, when it comes to new construction. They can't mandate it. They can incentivize, and they can say, hey, we're going to give you X tax breaks, so on and so forth, to get this stuff done. But the federal government can't turn around. Even though this is an emergency executive order, they cannot, Washington, D.C. can't come to Colorado and say, hey, you are now responsible for lowering the cost of your new construction homes by 40%. They just can't do it. And they can't mandate how they're going to do that. It's all state and local level. That's one thing, right? And people need to understand that. Like, this is all great. It's great mindset, but it's a state level thing. The second part is, a lot of the regulations, especially recently, have been environmentally targeted.
Yes.
Right? How do I make the homes more energy efficient so that we can combat climate change, so on and so forth? So when you say, hey, what are some things that could potentially be put in place to help those costs? Think about something as simple as insulation, right? From a construction standpoint, the better the insulation is, the more expensive it is to actually build, right? And Oscar's in the middle of doing his basement. I think you soundproofed your basement, right?
Yeah.
Well, the soundproofing insulation, not that that's environmentally sound, but it's the same idea. The soundproofing insulation was more expensive than just normal insulation,
Yeah, the
right?
drywall, RC
So-
channeling.
Yes. So if you start to then mandate more expensive materials to be built to fit into the regulations at the state level, then yes, that is a way that housing construction costs have increased. So if the states decide and they're incentivized to deregulate that, that would be a specific way that you could bring that cost down. Make sense?
It's and I think ultimately for me, it's just I don't like the blanket statements. Maybe it's the autism in me, but it's like, tell me how. Like, I need to know step A, step B, step C, step D.
But they
and how
can't
you're
tell
gonna
you
do it.
that because, again, the federal government cannot regulate it.
Yes.
All they can do is incentivize, and they don't know what those incentives
do this.
would be.
Which it's again, I would hope a gathering of the minds, and they come in and like, hey, this is what we want to do. Okay, yes. All right, let's make it happen. Then the drafters go write it up, put all the fancy language, get the attorneys involved. Then they come bring it back up, and do you like it? Yes. Do you like it? Well, no. Do you like it? Well, I don't like this. All right. Well, let's agree on it. Then they go back to the drafters. So it's kind of a process, and they don't. I mean, sometimes they just want to push it through, and they don't get it fucking right at all.
Yeah.
And sometimes again, political athletics. It's just so
Right.
the ego comes into play and stubbornness. Hey, if it doesn't work, let's chalk it up to experience. Hey, I fucked up. Let's rewrite it and. Let's see if it works this time.
Yep.
Well,
I
you
think-
talked about off the podcast. You kind of mentioned this, using like metal studs, framing, and whatnot when you're constructing a house. Well, one of the reasons that it's not necessarily cost effective is because from a commercial standpoint, it makes sense, right? You're supporting more weight. You got 5,000 people. You've got multiple escape routes to the house, whatever it is. But steel beams have something called I got to look it up. But essentially, it transfers heat a lot more efficiently than wooden beams. So from a housing fire standpoint, if you're using steel beams, steel studs to construct a home, you have to have very specific, very, very, very expensive insulation to meet current fire code standards in residential homes. So the point being, there is a cost and a benefit to everything.
They're more expensive,
Right?
The steel beams. So the
Hell, think about renovations, dude. Can you imagine renovating a steel beam house?
Oh, Jesus.
you could still do fiberglass insulation on those.
Not on, but depends on the city fire codes
So
for a house. Now, in addition, that's different. But I'm talking if you're building a residential home.
Most condos are built with those, right?
That's multifamily commercial. I'm
right,
talking
so,
single family residence.
If you want to do a single family residence, there's a community here in Colorado that were built with those, and that's Montbello. The problem with those is you said fire, but it's moisture.
Yes.
Believe it or not.
Yep.
There was a
'Cause they
lot of
corrode.
There's a lot of black mold
Yeah.
associated with
Yeah.
that. So there's different.
Well, the water sits, right?
Yeah.
So it either evaporates
Right.
or it doesn't go anywhere versus the wood, it'll at least absorb it.
Yeah, it's just different material reacts differently, right?
I love it.
So-
guys, thank you so much for being on the podcast and doing this. I love the in-depth conversation. I love the in-depth thought on the things that are just blanket statements. And
Right.
like, if it's your first time listening, please drop us a subscribe, like, follow, comment, all that good stuff. But like, this is exactly the reason why we started this podcast, is to have these open, honest conversations that actually dive a little bit deeper into the overarching umbrella of what we're looking at. So like, genuinely sitting here as a young man who went from not knowing anything to studying, learning, educating, I'm extremely grateful to be able to sit here with both of you guys and like take in this information and truly process this on a level that's not emotional, but truly based on statistic, fact, and history. And just from the bottom of my heart, I'm loving this conversation. So sorry.
So let's go to topic number 3.
I
may
love
look
it.
emotional.
Yeah.
And yes, I have passion.
Yeah.
But I'll hug it out afterwards.
So
I love it.
topic number 3
Yep.
was, now we want to address, hey, how do we build more houses? And where do we build more houses? So in the video that you'll see at the intro, if you guys rewind, one of the ideas is to open up federal land currently protected to build more houses and more communities. Thoughts?
Where is this federal land where people don't want to live? That's the
yeah,
problem.
Oscar, right
That
away
was the
hitting
first
nail-
time.
Right away hitting the nail on the head. And honestly,
You don't want to live in a beautiful Lennar community in the Badlands of South Dakota?
Well,
Absolutely not.
So we've been.
You can hunt buffalo like our
most
ancestors.
recent
No,
example
you
of
can't.
this-
They're protected. So you
most-
can't even do that.
No, that's part of the regulations. Getting
So
rolled
the
back.
most
You
recent
can
example
buffalo,
we have of
antelope
this
don't taste as good.
is in Nevada. Nevada is the most recent example of selling federal land to selling land back to the federal government to use for housing. And as of right now, it's kind of stagnated. They did it, but exactly for the reason that Oscar brought up. And I think that's the one thing that we want to talk about.
Look, the only people that want to buy the lands in Nevada are the gangsters, and they're gone. The mob already built Vegas. All right.
I think for me, it's and again, the tone of how this is about to come out, I'm sorry, but it's very much like, I think about it as like monkeys sitting around the table. We need more house. How house? More land. Build on land. Like, where land?
Yeah.
We get here. Like that in my
Eventually,
mind,
though, if you put 1,000 monkeys in a room over the course of 1,000 years, they'll write Shakespeare's play.
they'll do
I believe
something.
it was 99 monkeys.
Is it 99 monkeys?
99 monkeys.
What
But, like-
about that 100th one, though?
But that's
he's the one that makes it difference.
It just
So-
seems like it's like, here's the problem. Cool, let's just throw shit. And
Well,
It's,
and
it's like Zoolander when they're like, it's in the computer.
Yeah.
And start
But
banging the computer
it
out.
makes sense, right? Because
It does.
if the question is, where do we build more land? Okay, then the answer is, okay, well, let's use the land that we're not using for anything else. But to Oscar's point, it's not just about plopping houses down
No.
in Hartselle, Colorado.
Well, no,
right?
and here's
Like-
exactly, and I talk to people about this all the time about real estate in Colorado. When people, even when I think about coming to Colorado, I'm like, oh, Denver, man, it's beautiful. We got the Rocky Mountains, and like, what people don't realize is that 30% of this state is
empty.
undeveloped.
Yes.
It is empty. So that means if you want to buy
So-
there, you got to spend on water. You got to spend on electric. You got to spend on plumbing,
Tap
like
fees,
everything.
everything.
And it's when you're talking about, it's great again. Buy land, build on land. That's wonderful. But if that land is in a place that has not had utilities run to it, you are spending millions of dollars. on a
$15,000 to
community.
$35,000 on a leach field and a septic system, $25,000 to $40,000 on taps on electricity, or if you're going to do public plumbing to tie in, and then you have to think about Gas, if you're not tapping into gas, you got to do propane. That's going to be a healthy cost.
Hell, if you're not
and then
in
you
a
got to get
public
certification
system,
on all that
Yeah.
stuff.
Wells are what, $15
yep,
a foot?
Yep. So then you got to go for cost of material and work, and then you got to know how deep the well is, and then what you got to get it permitted to see what we can use the water for. Even you own the land, so you got to get a permit, whether it's domestic agriculture, domestic household. You could have a certain amount of it's a plethora
let's
of
go back to
stuff.
it.
Well, hell, think about
Because
think
everybody's
about-
like barnuminiums, let's go.
Think about just labor and materials alone.
Yeah.
Okay. If I'm building a house in the middle of the Denver metro area versus I'm up in Woodmore Mountain, where do you think it's more expensive? Like, there's logistics involved. You can't just say, you know what, I'm going to open up part of Rocky Mountain National Forest and I'm going to build a bedroom community at the base of Mount Evans.
Well, and it's
also, there's a reason why we're not building on these lands.
That's what I mean.
What is the reason, Oscar?
Well, because they're protected because of wildlife. If you're talking about the arsenal, you can't go build at Rocky Flats unless you want to glow in the middle of the night.
Yep.
I mean, there's reasons why we can't build on a lot of this land. And being an outdoorsman,
Don't touch my fucking forest.
yeah, don't touch my mountains.
I'm sorry.
And
Don't
my
touch it.
lakes, and you know what? The prairie. I just got done showing property down south in Callahan and Yoder.
Yeah.
Yoder.
Yoderley.
You have a beautiful view of Pikes Peak,
Yep.
but then you look northeast, and you have a shit ton of windmills,
But then also think about it.
eyesores, big ass, nasty, post-apocalyptic looking things
Well-
that I don't like. And that sucks for the farmers that just were living peacefully
And
out
let's
there.
go back-
So there's a lot of involved
This is
emotional
where-
stuff, right?
This is where I'd love to have like a phone to pick up and call Art, like the investor guy, and basically ask him. The other thing that we're thinking about here is when you do this, we talked about incentivizing builders. We talked about getting rid of regulations. Guys, investors are all about their net sheet, in, out, right? That's what it comes down to with investors. And what you're telling me is you're going to look at an investor and say, hey, we got all this land for you right here. Right here. We would love for you to build here. But you have to, up front, before you build any homes, establish utilities here. What you just told that builder is out of pocket, you're probably going to spend a quarter of your budget on just putting utilities in up front. That is up. You have to get that done before you even build. So now you're telling me an investor is looking at millions of dollars that they have to sit on for at least 4 years, 5 years to fill a community. I'm sorry, but as an investor, why the hell would I do that?
We saw it coming in over in Crystal Valley. You need infrastructure.
Yep.
You know, you need all the sewer lines put in. You need all that. So
Well,
not
you
only
need
that, but then
roads.
all of a sudden taxes go up.
Yeah.
Why? Because they need to put in new roads. They need to bring in a King Soopers, Safeway, grocery stores.
Yep.
They need to bring in some gas stations.
Yes.
You need to bring in a school. You know, there's a lot more involved than just let's plop some houses in a community.
Well, I think
Exactly.
that's a great point
Yeah.
because if you're talking about solving the housing crisis supply side,
you got to build a
and
whole
you're-
city.
and you're building single family homes. You also have to think who is going to buy those single family homes. Families, okay? You're not going to have a young family with kindergarten age kids move to a community
Has no
that
school.
the school is 60 minutes away, the hospital's 40 minutes away, the grocery store's 40 minutes away in a community. You have people living off grid, they want to live rural, that's one thing, right? So now, to Oscar's point, you have to incorporate all of those costs. On top of that, let's say I do build something out in the middle of nowhere. Let's say it's a King Soopers, okay? Well, King Soopers still has to get their food from somewhere. The farther away that grocery store is, the higher the cost of food is in that grocery store because now you got gas prices, trucking prices, you got all these different logistical things. If you go to a hospital, okay? Now, let's say I want medical care for my family, but I live in the middle of nowhere. Is the medical care there going to be the same as the medical care in a metropolitan area? No, because now you have to somehow entice really good doctors to travel that far away or live in those communities. So it's not, to your point, it's not just plopping them down. The other piece of this that people aren't paying attention to is great. The federal land idea, awesome idea. It's land, we're not using it, let's build shit. Where is it at in the majority? So the federal government owns, if you take the land in the United States, they own 27% of all land in the US. Over 70% of that land is in the western United States.
Uninhabitable.
So, or regardless, let's say it is habitable. That just means that you're benefiting those people looking at housing in the western United States. You're doing nothing for the eastern half of the United States, which is where the majority of our
Come on, man.
population
It's a great
lives on the
migration,
east.
man.
The majority of our land is on the west. So it's not a practical
It's a great migration.
thing. It's not a practical thing.
It's not.
It's
And,
not.
and the one thing, this is kind of going to be.
And so to your point, a lot of that land is west, the western portion of our state,
And then south,
and south.
where it's 130 degrees. In the
Well, not
middle of
only
summer.
that, the topography.
Yeah,
I mean,
you can't build. That's
okay,
what I'm saying.
you can't build. And
There's no water.
how expensive is the mountains?
Right.
Yeah.
Because you can't get grocery store or truckers down there when it's icy.
Well, and just construction costs
it's
alone,
just
dude.
and it's
Like-
hard to build out there.
Yes.
There's a lot of bedrock. It's just topography
It's
sucks.
expensive.
Well, and let's.
Unless it's Moffett, Colorado, which I went there. It's not a cool place to be unless you're going to the dunes all the
Right.
time.
Or
Well,
Grand
and-
Junction, Colorado.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Megan,
Al-
but it was. It's very
Alamosa?
remote. It's very
Right.
remote.
Like-
Alamosa, that's just right.
Yep.
30 minutes from
Yep.
Moffett. You know, cool places if you love the outdoors. Not so much if you like people.
Right.
But and so here's the other thing too, and guys, this is
I mean,
this is kind of going to be like a
Here.
+1 on today's topic.
this is what I'm looking at. So that's federal land owned.
Right.
Yeah, we're gonna have to put. We'll throw that up.
I'd
there.
love to. I'd love
put
to.
the-
I was
put
gonna say
that
I'd
in the
love to see
description.
the acreage in Death
mean,
Valley.
Yeah.
And how much land in
Look
Death Valley
at
the
this.
government
Nevada, that's
owns.
pretty much the government
All of
owns
it,
all of
dude.
Nevada.
It's all of it.
Wow.
So here's the other thing. This is going to kind of be a +1 on
We
top
could
of
move
this, right?
to Area 51.
Dude,
we're
they don't
talking-
own any of Nebraska.
We've been talking a lot about building. We've been talking a lot about
Texas.
regulatories to assist building.
Yep.
The one thing that I want to kind of address, but before we move on to the One Rock takeaway and everything, is one, who is building these homes, and two, how are we building these homes? What are we using? We kind of touched on
Yes.
the lumber and the metal,
Yep.
but we also have this administration coming in and saying that they want to deport over 20 million illegal aliens, undocumented from the
Immigrants.
United States.
Yes.
Okay, Jameson, can you give us some of the numbers as to, like, if we get the land and we do start building on the land, what is
Yeah, this is to me this is the hard part, because to me this is the dichotomy of what the policy is. The policy is we want to make housing more affordable by getting rid of some of the fees, by opening up federal land, and by lowering interest rates, right? But then let's say you do open that federal land, to your point, and you start to build these affordable houses. Well, if we're going to, kick out 20 million undocumented immigrants, 30 to 40% of the construction labor in the United States is undocumented immigrants. So you get rid of those. Now who do you have to build those homes? You've got goddamn red, white, and blue-blooded Americans, which I'm sure will take those jobs, but they're going to demand higher wages. They're going to demand health insurance. They're going to demand all sorts of these different things, which is going to drive up that cost, right? The second piece of this is we want to make houses more affordable, but at the same time, we also want to introduce tariffs on the two countries that we import the most lumber from, which is China and Canada. And China, and we'll give you numbers, right? China imports 10 to 12 billion board feet of lumber per year to the United States. Canada, between 25 and 30 billion board feet of lumber to the United States. We produce 46 billion board feet of lumber. If we take out those two countries, we do not make enough lumber to satisfy demand, which means we can't build enough houses fast enough, which increases prices. If we continue to import from those countries, but now we're saying 65% more on lumber from China, 25% more from Canada. Now that's driving the building cost, because the materials are anywhere between 25 to 30 to 70% more expensive. So all of that money we saved by deregulating and getting rid of the fees somehow at the state level has now been replaced and is now elevated because our labor is going to cost more and our materials are going to cost more. So
It's
to
almost
me,
if you don't
that's
believe me,
tough.
call up Treehouse Masters and have them build you a house.
Yeah, that's just
Yeah,
that's
it costs you a
tough-
whole
that's
lot of
tough
money.
For me.
So,
That's tough for me.
but
to,
there's
like,
alternatives, right?
consolidate, you know what I'm saying?
So there's alternatives. We talked about this. One of my past clients here in Castle Rock owns a business. They're building a million
The
houses.
3D printed houses.
Yep.
Yes.
And not 3D built, but
Or-
they're
Prefabricated.
so they're kind of cast Lego kind of.
I thought they were 3D printed though, essentially, right?
Maybe we
'Cause
should
it's
have
the-
them on the show. His name's
Yeah.
Jeremy Reichart. I mean, he has a great idea.
We actually should. Why
He's
have we
gonna-
not had him on the show?
I don't know, but he's gonna
He's
go.
local, right?
Yeah, he still lives here. I,
get him.
I,
Let's
I
get
could
him
call
going.
him.
Let's get him on.
He's gonna build. I think he said 1 million houses down in Brazil,
Love
and he told me, he goes, Oscar, I could build you a house, at least frame and everything, just ready for plumbing, electrical. And don't quote me on this because he still lives here. He'll come kick my ass if I misquote him. I think somewhere around, I think 1,200 square feet, roughly for about $35,000-$40,000.
Now they're weird looking.
They're
But-
pretty modern looking.
Yeah.
You could. I think the
You
the
say
exterior,
modern, I say weird.
the exterior. You could.
Tomato,
you,
tomato.
it's the frame and the structure, and then you just come in and put the roofing on.
Mm-hmm.
They're pretty cool. They're pre-run for electrical and plumbing.
Yeah.
There's alternatives, but
Dude,
again,
to-
red tape. Maybe maybe.
Total side note.
Hey,
so
you
my
know what? I
daughter-
hope they call him up with the red
Yeah.
tape lifted because.
Yeah.
Hey Jeremy, I'll sell you another house.
Yeah.
I gotta send you guys this video. My daughter watches this YouTube channel. I don't know how she found it, but it's these two. I want to say they're in Brazil. Okay, there's two dudes in Brazil with loincloths, no shirt.
Oh, the
in
ones that
middle of
like dig
jungle,
the holes and like make some.
and they
at 2 in the
make
morning?
make
A
those
spa?
these houses
Yeah.
with like in-ground pools,
Everything.
like
And they're digging it out with
everything,
a
dude.
stick.
And all-
and
and
they
all you
just
hear
do
is-
it. Oh my god,
Yeah.
it is the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my
like
entire
ASMR
life.
building.
And they use these like the bamboo shoots.
Yep,
Then
yep.
they take the mud and they turn it into cement. And like they'll sit there and they'll take a house like from like the spaceship house in off of I-70,
Floyd Hill
and
or
they will
whatever.
recreate that in the fucking Amazon.
Tell me.
and then they take the paint.
Tell me you're a realtor without telling me you're a realtor. Your daughter's sitting on YouTube watching people build houses.
And she'll sit there and she's like, Dad, check this out. Oh my God, look what they're doing. And I'm like, okay, wait a second.
That's awesome.
I would live in this house. It's like a 1,500 square foot mud mansion with an in-ground pool. They pipe the water from a nearby creek
Yeah.
to have water features.
They had it right at Mesa Verde.
fucking
had it right
wild,
down
bro.
there.
Like
Yeah.
absolutely
I've been wanting to go down
insane.
there, actually.
Absolutely insane.
Awesome.
So
But-
yeah.
you're
That's-
sitting there watching, like, I would live there. I'm sitting there watching these guys, like, what am I doing with my life?
Right.
These
But that's
guys are
what's
awesome.
hard for me is because we've got these ideas.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, and this is again personal opinion, I get it. I'll get roasted for it. I feel like the policies are contradicting each other.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there. I
right.
think this is a great time to move into the One Rock takeaway
Okay.
for today's episode. And guys, if you're new listeners, if you're just watching for the first time, a One Rock takeaway is all three of us kind of give like a closing statement, a final thought on the topic of today's episode. And again, today's episode, we were talking about the incoming administration's plans on how to make housing more affordable. So who wants to take it? No, all right, I'll take it. So
So you start.
yeah, I got it. So basically, my One Rock takeaway from today's conversation is don't take things at face value. Don't just listen to what politicians are saying on the right or the left and say, oh, wow, they're going to make it better. Because when you actually break it down and you look into it, there's things that have to play into it. And it's great to say, hey, and Donald Trump is phenomenal at this, is saying, I'm going to do this and it's going to make it better for you. Don't just take that at face value. Actually break it down. Talk to specialists in the industry, whether it be a realtor, a developer, a lender, whoever it is, and actually talk to them and have the conversation of, hey, how is this going to work? Will this work? And what does that look like? The second part of this, and this is kind of just a PSA directly to everybody listening, the only way we get better is together. The only way we move forward is together, irregardless of how you feel about the administration, their decisions, whatever it may be. And again, I understand I'm talking from a white male, born in America, privileged position, but the only way we get through this together, the only way the human race has gotten to where we are is because we are an altruistic species and we rely on each other to get to where we are and where we're going. So on that note, regardless of how you feel, please, guys, we need to stop this division. We need to stop being angry. We need to be able to have these conversations because if not, we're going to separate more and it's going to get worse for us at the end. I'm done.
Whatever. This is all simulation.
I love it.
No,
So you took the blue pill or the red pill? I forget.
I took them both.
I am tripping balls.
I haven't been here this whole episode.
Why is Neo my realtor? I don't understand.
So, I mean, coming from, trust no one, question everything, most of the time, mindset,
It's a Russian mindset, by the way. Trust but verify.
Trust but verify.
Trust but verify.
What is it? Lube?
Key,
The
key in
word for love in
background
in
music.
Russian. No, I mean, Yes, I'll segue with Charlie. I mean, it's don't take anything for face value. Get some education, and then if it doesn't make sense, then prep yourself for it. Let's hope for the best and prep for the worst. I mean, I hate to put it that way, but I'm hopeful that we get at least a little better. They're not going to get it right. I'll tell you that much right now. I don't care how far to the right you think you are, and it's all going to get great. They're going to get some shit wrong. Just know it. And then for the other side, hey, let's give it a shot. And I mean, in the worst case scenario, you get to say, "I told you so." I don't know. Let's just stop beating each other up about it, though.
Mm-hmm.
Let's come together, like Charlie said, and at least unify in the fact that we're Americans and we're trying to make things right.
I got a 2-rock takeaway.
Right.
You guys also both said 2 things, so I'm going to say 2 things.
We killed 2 birds with 1 stone. You're going to kill 1 bird with 2 stones.
The first thing is, as you guys are reading headlines, especially when it comes to housing affordability, the housing market, there's a lot of angst, there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of frustration. If it sounds too good to be true, it most likely is too good to be true.
Mm-hmm.
Would you guys agree?
Yep.
I agree.
So if you're sitting there going, man, 3% interest rates sound great, research how we're going to get there, why we're going to get there, what are the factors involved in us getting to that point, right? If we're saying, hey, we're opening up federal land, research, like, how does that benefit me as a buyer? Do you want to move to Death Valley? Probably not. Right? Horrible
Can
name.
you even move?
Horrible name for a subdivision, to be honest with you. Right? Hey, I'd like to get homeowners insurance. Where do you live? Death Valley.
Death is not
sorry,
really a good thing.
Can't do it, right?
I mean, one thing we all have in common, but
Yeah.
no.
Oh, I'm gonna magically make houses cheaper to build. Well, again, when I say if it's too good to be true, it probably is. It's because if these things were available and easy to do, they would have already been done.
Checks and
They
balances.
just would have, right? And they're not. So just make sure you question those things and do your research. Talk to your local realtors, experts. Do your own research, whatever that is. The second piece of this, and this is what I hope comes of this entire thing. The one thing that America is not good at is natural resource production, which is why we import a majority of our raw materials. However, the one thing we are very good at is innovation. And I really, truly hope that this problem that we currently have with housing and affordability leads to innovation that we haven't seen yet to make it make sense for anybody that's looking at buying a house from an affordable standpoint. I truly believe, and I bring this up because you just talked about your buddy that's doing 3D printed houses,
We have some smart people
prefab,
here.
whatever it is. I truly believe that this problem that we're seeing leads to innovation that lets us move forward. Mm-hmm. And I'll say this, and you guys both share the sentiment. I want this next 4 years to go really well.
Yep.
Me too.
I really do.
Mm-hmm.
I
So-
agree, 100%.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I mean, quick
Beautiful.
question: if we acquire Greenland, you want to live out there? I'm sure that'd be federal land.
Yeah, right.
I mean, that's a good example. No one wants to live there. Just for the geography was not my strong suit.
It's full of ice.
It's full of ice. Greenland is icy and Iceland is green. It's just batshit backwards. If we buy that, I mean, we'll have a lot of
Hey,
ice.
listen,
I don't know.
we live in Crystal Valley, right?
Yeah.
Our elk that we have like 200 head. They're very similar to reindeer.
Oh yeah.
You're right.
I mean,
You know what I'm saying?
I have a deer living in my front yard. By the
I
way.
mean, you
I
might
love
have to spend a little bit more on like geothermal heating in Greenland, but my God, I don't know how many square miles of land they have to develop, but
A
fuck
whole
it,
lot.
let's put
We'll
some,
get there.
A
Put some
lot.
goddamn
No,
houses
guys,
on there, bro.
This is again phenomenal episode, great topic, and seriously, like I'm gonna rarely do I do a little, a lot of patting on the back, but I think that we do a really good job of addressing these things without malice, without any kind of with fact, and really just thinking
Yeah.
through them. And guys, honestly, if you're listening to people that you don't feel that do that, please just vet the people that you're listening to, because the internet is a beautiful thing for communication, but it also gives stupid ass people
Occam's razor.
a place
Look at
to talk.
Yeah.
Occam's
You know,
razor.
so just take everything with a grain of salt. But
Well, and I think we, at least me, for example, I mean, I think we do a pretty good job of explaining it without the technical terms. We can get very technical.
Mm-hmm.
We don't script any of this, at least we try to prep a lot of it.
We do the research.
We do the
don't
research,
script
but
it.
I
One take, baby.
At least
Yeah.
when I want to
One take wonders.
communicate, I want to communicate to the point where you're understanding me. I could use big words. I could do like a big research and then just script it out to you guys. That's not the point of this podcast. I want you to feel comfortable with our topic, and I want you to feel comfortable with the way we are explaining it to you, because this is very much for you, and so you could learn and see that it's not an impossible or a scary thing to make happen in your life.
Absolutely. Phenomenal topic.
Well said, Oscar.
Yeah, very well said, Oscar. Phenomenal topic. Let's go ahead and move into the bourbon review for today's episode. And on today's episode, just give you a little review on it. We're drinking the Whistlepig 10-year toast Snout-to-Tail, and it is a double two toasted bourbon, which basically they take a different wood for the top of the barrel, different wood for the bottom of the barrel, toast them, and then it's supposed to add a layer of different complexity and flavors to the bottle. Yeah, this bottle, I don't want to start on this one.
I don't hate it. I don't even know where to start. The notes that I was taking as we were talking, it had some notes of sour, bitter, herbal. Nothing up front. It was very mute up front. Then as it sat, it became floral, more like a wine drinkability, not a bourbon. It was very fluid, very sippable, but not too complex. It was tasty, but when I see bourbon, I want that complexity. I want that leather, that tobacco, that old school chew the fat kind of southern drawl, hit you in the face drink, because that's what bourbon is. This was not. This was a little more sophisticated, which I use the word sophisticated to give it some props, but I think it kind of fell flat for a bourbon for me.
Okay. Do you want to give you a rating now, or you
I'm still kind of
still putting it together?
I'm putting it together.
So I will say this. This is going to sound so harsh, so Whistlepig, I apologize, but this is what we do.
And again, I don't want to.
This is what we do. Here's the deal. This is a gimmick bourbon. That's my honest opinion.
I agree.
It's a gimmick bourbon. It is, to me, it is akin to Oak and Eden, putting the little spiral shaft in every bottle and saying, "Oh my God, it's going to unlock flavors." It is a gimmick bourbon. I will compare this, honestly, to two other bourbons that I would drink 12 out of 10 times against this, and one of which I actually don't even like that much. Basil Hayden Toasted Barrel, which I think at $55 is overpriced, but that's a 3-year aged bourbon that
And-
I think has more complexity than this. And then I just had it. I don't know if you guys have had it yet for $59. Elijah Craig Toasted Rye, fucking phenomenal. for
Even just the
$59
Elijah Craig toasted.
And oh, by the way, that's also only aged 3 years. So for the fact, and I'm not angry, right? Because we try bourbons and whatever, but for a 10-year aged bourbon
I wanted more.
to have this little complexity, I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed.
It's funny because I feel like if I were to go back to Charlie on episode 1, that couldn't handle a bourbon that was high proof or couldn't handle, and just tell him like, "Hey man, stay away from this bottle." Like he would be like, "Well, what do you mean? It's bourbon. It's good." But I feel like I'm coming from a place of, and please excuse me, but experience on this. I agree with both of you in the fact that the complexity was not there. This is supposed to be a 10-year from Whistlepig, which is highly sought after,
Right.
which does have phenomenal flavor. And the way that this is branded, you see that big old 10-year on the front of the bottle. It says 10-year. And then you have the toasted tail, Snout-to-Tail, whatever it may be. I don't like this bourbon. I don't like.
No,
I
and
don't
you know
like
what-
it,
to
the
their
price.
to their credit, it's not as bad as that rum cast.
Yeah,
Wait,
no,
wait,
where it's not, it's fake.
But it's 100%. I want to say for the creed of who they are, right?
Yes, exactly.
Whistlepig, it is gimmicky for them.
Yes,
It's
it
very
is
gimmicky.
It is.
It's gimmicky. I'll be honest. It's gimmicky down to the name.
Yeah.
If they would have said double toasted, I'm fine with that. But snout to tail, like I'm gonna make it pig because it leaves so much to be desired. And the fact that it's 10 years,
And
I-
Whistle-
Whistlepig, I
hardest
love
part
you.
with this-
Stick to your lane.
Yeah.
The hardest
You do
part
a
about
good job
this
at
for
your
me
other stuff.
is, when we do our rock rating, it's on a scale of 1 to 10 because 1 being the better the bourbon, the less rocks you want to put in it. 10, the worse, the more rocks you put in it to water it down.
I would definitely
And
not put any rocks into
that's-
this because
and
they would fuck it
That's
up.
what I'm saying. It's hard for me because this one,
I would drink this straight
would-
out of the bottle.
Yep.
yeah, I would not put
Not even a
pass it
cup.
around.
like
Yeah.
I would not put. I wouldn't. You can't do anything with this. If
No.
you put I feel like if I put a drop of water in this,
It disappears.
it destroys everything that every.
If you make an
flavor
old
that's in there.
fashioned with this, all you're gonna
taste sugar.
taste simple syrup.
That's it. That's it.
It's
It
a,
doesn't have a weight to it.
It's a House of Cards bourbon.
Yeah.
A slight breeze, and this thing just
It
doesn't have the weight that
it's
it
not
should.
even sippable.
No.
It is drinkable.
Yeah, exactly.
You could drink it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can turn this up. Like
You
sit
can
there
turn
and
it
drink. And if you're trying to spend
Take a
$70 to
pull.
$80 in a bottle and drink through it in a day,
I was gonna. So
cool,
I was,
go for
I was
this.
gonna ask,
Yeah.
what's the price of it?
70 to 80 retail.
So normally 70 to 80 retail equates to about what, 18 to 20 bucks a pour.
Mm-hmm.
So for me to go to here, full transparency, I went to Matsuhisha in Cherry Creek last night. My dad's 65th birthday. Happy birthday. They had E.H. Taylor bottled and bond, right? Mm-hmm. Fucking phenomenal.
Yep.
$20 a pour.
Yeah.
Take that all fucking
Yep.
day.
Yep.
All day. She goes, do you want a large rock? Absolutely not. Give it to me neat. Mm-hmm. And that bottle, which is very hard to find, right, is $20 a pour. This is $16 to $18 a pour. I could not recommend this to anybody.
I would say if you're
And
E.H.
coming-
Taylor is
10-year
one of my favorites.
Dude, the 10 if
period.
the
If you're
10
coming-
years throwing me off. If this is a 3-year,
Yeah.
I'd have a completely
Yeah,
different time.
absolutely.
The 10 years
and
throwing
the fact
me
that you
off.
plaster it on the bottle, 10 year, like
10 years throwing me
that's what's getting me. If you come, the cool thing is if you come to the Rouge, they're going to be honest with you about it. They're going to talk to you. You ask questions. We're working with them guys right now to where if you come in and you sit down at the bar, there's going to be a little QR code that you can scan and go right to the reviews. So if you have anything, you can come right to the podcast, get a live review from all of us. But
This one will just be us three on one video. It's 7 seconds long.
don't do it. But no, I again extremely thankful to Chris for letting us try it. And again, I think we're going to be one of the first people to actually put a review out on it.
Hopefully win the last.
Yeah. Let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and give it the rock rating. I'll start it out. I'm going to give this a solid 6.
Wow. I mean,
Boom.
5.5.
5.5.
Yeah, I was
And 5.5 because it is drinkable.
It is.
It's not grossly I gagged, but it let me down just
Mm-hmm.
because it's coming from a name brand.
Yeah. And yeah, who it's coming from exactly.
I mean, if this was an
And the
unknown
10-year tag on
entity, like we don't know, catfish bourbon, you know?
Yeah.
All right, well they're working shit out, but
Yeah,
for
here,
80
didn't-
bucks,
Didn't.
no, just
for-
put your notes. No,
for 80
look at that.
bucks, the juice inside is just okay.
It's water.
Whistlepig,
So-
I think you could have done better.
It's a water.
So for those of you that believe in the theory of evolution, right, and you see the chart of like the ape, and then they start standing upright, and then they start walking, this would be the ape, but then the ape is just the ape.
yeah, like,
After
here,
150 years, it's still just an ape.
look, stick your nose in this. Like it's just this. So
Yeah.
as you guys all know, we always, for our listeners, we have a glass that sits open for JC, who was the reason that we started this podcast.
Well, now it's JC, Gage,
and Gabe and
or sorry,
Josh.
JC, Gabe, and Josh.
Yep. And you know that, but so we let that sit and we let it open just to
see.
be a control, guys.
Yeah,
when
I mean
tell
this
you,
kind of smells like
it smells like nothing.
Well,
like
and
nothing.
it's
Like
again,
maybe, you know when you smell a cologne,
Yeah.
and it's just like it just hits
Yeah.
your nose like ah.
so it's not Armani code.
No, it's definitely not.
Yeah, exactly. I was hoping that it would have some kind of flavor, but it lost all the sweetness on the nose,
It just is.
all
There's
burn.
nothing.
There's nothing there.
It just
Like,
is.
It is just this.
And
just
again,
a
I
liquor.
Well, and that's
respect.
the
I
cra-
respect this.
The crazy part is
Distillery.
Before I,
I really do.
Before I give my rating, yes, I like Whistlepig for the most part, but to me, and we talk about this all the time, right? If you're barreling, yeah,
Yeah.
a bourbon for 10 years, that is an investment. You made a decision a decade ago, and you said, I'm going to let it do its thing for a decade. And when it comes out, it is going to be better than when we first barreled it. I don't know what happened. I feel
Yeah.
like if you would have popped this after year 2
Would've been the
versus
same.
year 10, I think it would be the exact same.
Yeah.
I'm going to be harsh. I'm going to give it a 7.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I think there's 2 reasons. The fact that it's a 10-year and the fact that it's almost $18 to $20 a pour.
Yeah.
I can't.
And again,
I would
I
not
wanna-
feel comfortable in my knowledge if I were to take somebody that enjoys bourbon and goes, hey, this is a 10-year Whistlepig. Should I try it? I would tell them no.
And I want to reiterate that is a market price for the pour. We do not know. This is so new that we do not know what the pour price is.
It
here at
better
the
be
Rouge.
like
Well, and
12.
again, if you if you pop it open with someone that knows bourbon, I don't think they're gonna beat you up because one, they know bourbon and they know Whistlepig, but they're gonna be like,
But if you
interesting.
blind
what
taste
went
test
what
this?
went
What
what went
wrong?
south?
Yeah.
If you blind taste test this between Basil Hayden toasted
Yeah,
and this,
I think you
I
nailed
think
it.
you would actually choose the toasted. The
You-
Basil Hayden.
for two reasons. One, the proofing.
Right.
Most high-end
50.
good bourbons are
100 proof.
90 plus, 100 plus, 100 plus.
That's what I don't
Proof.
understand. Like,
I don't-
almost
yeah.
feel
And
like the
and
label's
so that
wrong.
Yeah.
yeah,
Weird.
they
If you're from
This
Whistlepig,
is very
if you have a
Basil
connection to
Hadel.
Whistlepig,
this is very
Reach out to
basil.
us.
Hey, come
Basil
on and
Hayden.
defend it.
yeah,
I just I can't,
wanna
dude.
know. I want to know.
Hey,
100%.
I can't.
What's their names from Waco came and defended.
Yeah, Balcones. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, they came and
I wanna
defended
hear
it, and I
about
was
it.
like, oh.
I want to hear about
I
it.
now
just
it makes
don't.
sense.
Dude, I have a hard time.
But again, this is so new that they don't
10
even have it on their website yet
10
for a
years
description.
tough, bro.
So
Maybe it's an
10 years
homage
away.
to something, and we
Yeah,
don't know.
We
And
gotta
it's
wait.
like,
we got to see.
maybe.
Shitty
But,
whiskey.
I don't
with
know.
that-
Maybe
with
they
that
had
being
a
said, guys,
maybe they had a like their stepdad or something. I don't know. I'm trying to dig
phenomenal episode.
I'm
Charlotte's
reaching.
Web.
I'm
It's the
reaching, man.
Charlotte's Web version.
Information full.
here. It's their nursery rhyme
Thank you
edition.
to everybody again who's been liking,
Charlie.
commenting,
Yep.
following, sharing.
Yep.
Guys,
Keeping us on track.
You've gotten us up another 10 subscribers over the last month, which we thank you. We're extremely grateful for that. We want to see more comments come through.
Yes.
We want to see you let us know what you want us to try, what direction you want us to take. Any questions that you have, let us know. To everybody that's commented and let us know that how much information we've given them via YouTube, via the podcast. We hear you. Thank you so much. That's exactly why we do this podcast. You can reach out to all of us on our own independent
Here,
social
I want to give a
medias.
shout out real quick.
Yeah.
So I had a buddy of mine that I used to play basketball with in high school. His name's Kellen Black. Kellen, shout out. He sent me a message on LinkedIn today, out of nowhere. Like, hey man, how you doing? I've seen you guys' videos. You guys are doing a phenomenal job. Like, this is so informative. Thank you so much for putting this information out, especially for people that aren't experienced. Like, that's
That's it. That's why we
amazing,
do it.
dude.
Like,
So
that's
thank
it.
you for watching, first off.
We're not getting paid for this.
No, but this is why we do it, right? Like that. I got that message today. Like I was reading it in the parking lot before I walked in, and I'm like, man, that's the whole thing, right? Like if I reach
One person.
that goes, oh shit, you know what? This is valuable,
And that feels more
that's what we
confident
wanna
in
do.
their journey.
Yes.
That's why we're here.
Yep.
That's why we're here. But you can reach out to all of us on our own independent socials. I finally did it. At Charlie Sardelli on Instagram, on TikTok, on
Oh,
Facebook.
dang.
Stay tuned, guys. It's a slow start. A lot happened in the beginning of this year and the end of last year for me. But I'm going to come out. We're going to use this channel, and we want to do more informative videos for you. We want to do more talking head videos, more community spotlights. So we're going to come out. But you can find me at Charlie Sardelli across the board.
Oscar the Realtor CO across the board.
The Colorado real estate guy across the board, or Jameson Armros, I guess, on Facebook.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
And
you could Google
guys,
Oscar
yeah,
Ibarra.
exactly.
Guess what
I'm not the VP of Samsung.
Guess what I just got access to on TikTok, which, by the way, all hail resurrection.
Yeah,
of
right.
TikTok.
It was a stressful 12 hours, bro.
But
I couldn't even get to my drafts.
I just got the ability to go live on my TikTok.
Nice.
1,000 followers.
No, apparently if you have a certain amount of likes, they allow you to do it.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm able to go live for some reason.
And I've been commenting.
I don't know.
I got there, so
Sweet.
Nice.
yeah, we
I
can do it now.
I mean, I can go live on mine then if that's the case.
Yeah, so stay
Sick.
tuned, guys, because we're gonna have
going
hopefully a lot more
live.
content coming your way. But you can always reach out to all three of us together, RESOTR at themilehighperspective.com, or give us a ring, get in touch with us,
Yep.
let us know if you want to have a bourbon.
720-584-3361.
And again, guys, thank you so much. We look forward to doing this episode every week for you. Not only is it good for us to provide you information, but this does amazing things for our soul. I know for me, like I said, I've learned a ton since we started doing this. I love sitting here with you guys, and I can't wait to see where we go from this.
Hell yeah.
If you are in the area and you want to check out an amazing restaurant with phenomenal food, a great wine and bourbon collection, come visit the Rouge Wine and Bourbon Bistro out here in Greenwood Village. They love to have you. They have phenomenal events going on. Stay tuned on their website for all those events and stuff like that. But on that note, we'll catch you guys
Hey,
later.
are they following the Colorado rule that we don't take Christmas down until the end of the
Yes.
stock show?
They're
Stock
getting
show,
there.
baby. Yeah.
All right,
getting there.
all right, just,
Yeah,
go-
they're getting
just
there.
making sure.
That's
Cheers,
the thing.
everybody. And
Cheers,
remember,
guys.
as always, drinks responsibly. Catch you guys later.